There is a persistent, low-frequency hum beneath everything you do. It is not anxiety, not exactly. It is the feeling of being misaligned, like wearing a heavy coat woven from someone else's expectations, warm enough sometimes, yet constantly reminding you that you are not quite free to move. We spend so much energy looking for the precise moment we fractured, the single catastrophic event, the sharp defining line that separates who we were from who we became. But the genesis of who you are, the architecture of your adult identity, it seldom arrives with the drama of lightning. It arrives as routine pressure. It is the slow crystallization of necessity. It is not the moment you became damaged. It is the moment you became intensely, ruthlessly functional. We are talking about the emergence of the proxy self. The essential self, the inherent being, was too messy, too loud, too inconvenient for the emotional terrain it was born into. So you built a negotiator, a highly specialized psychological agent designed to secure resources, maintain peace, and crucially, predict threats before they materialized. And we confused the skilled negotiator for the authentic self. We confused the lifelong performance of safety for safety itself. Think back to the earliest emotional landscapes you inhabited, the place where the world first became knowable. This is where we locate what I call the first mirror. It was not a mirror of unconditional love, though you were told that it was. It was a mirror of conditional reflection. It reflected back to you the image that was most useful to the adults around you. If you were quiet, the environment calmed. If you excelled, approval flowed. If you were compliant, friction ceased. The moment you became who you are was not a singular epiphany of self-awareness. It was the first time you consciously chose to abandon a genuine impulse because the emotional reward for performing the convenient impulse was so much greater. It was the moment you learned that acceptance was not guaranteed by existence, but earned through adaptation. And the earning process became the foundation of your adult work ethic, your relational patterns, and your quiet dread. We carry these programs with terrifying fidelity. They run in the background, consuming enormous amounts of processing power. They dictate the unnecessary apology, the sudden withdrawal, the inability to receive a simple compliment without minimizing the achievement. Look closely at your own life right now. Find the behaviors that are strategically brilliant, yet emotionally bankrupt. Why do you over-explain when you are already trusted? Why do you prepare for ruin when things are finally stable? This is the proxy self, still running its outdated threat matrix, convinced that the environment of 60 centimeters tall still prevails. It believes the house is perpetually unsteady, and it only knows one way to ensure stability: by preemptively giving away your own needs. We must become archaeologists of our own emotional systems. We are searching for the invisible contract signed decades ago. The contract that said, "I will manage your feelings so that you do not inadvertently destroy me." That required a level of emotional labor from a developing mind that was unsustainable. But the child, seeing no other option for survival, accepted the terms. And that acceptance is the source code of your contemporary exhaustion. Consider the energy spent on regulating the moods of others. It feels protective, necessary, even noble. But in reality, it is a desperate attempt to control the ambient temperature of a room because long ago, a temperature change meant potential abandonment, or worse, sudden, inexplicable coldness. The proxy self is a master of emotional camouflage. It learns the language of the tribe. It becomes hyper-literate in unspoken signals. A certain sigh, a particular way a shoulder dropped, the precise measure of silence after a request. These were not merely atmospheric details, they were life and death signals. And the child internalized them, creating sophisticated internal protocols for evasion, appeasement, and performance. This system, once life-saving, becomes life-limiting. Because the moment you step outside of the proxy's defined performance parameters, the moment you express an authentic, unmanaged need, the system initiates a full panic response. This is why vulnerability feels like a suicidal impulse. Because to the programmed child inside, it is. Vulnerability means showing the messy, unacceptable part of the self that was originally rejected or ignored, and that part, the core self, learned early on that visibility equals danger. The adult desire for genuine connection, for true rest, runs directly contrary to the proxy's core directive: maintain control through tireless prediction and output. We confuse our childhood programming with our inherent worth. If the only way to be safe was to be productive, we internalize productivity as a moral imperative. If the only way to be seen was to be suffering, we subconsciously manufacture crises to generate the fleeting attention we crave. If the only way to feel important was to solve everyone else's problems, we actively sabotage our own rest, ensuring we remain perpetually necessary, perpetually drained. The adult manifestation of this programming is rarely obvious. It surfaces as the constant, low-grade fear that if you stop performing, the safety net will instantly dissolve. It is the inability to simply exist in the presence of someone you admire without feeling the overwhelming need to justify your existence to them. Watch how you enter a room. Do you scan for affirmation? Do you search for the fastest route to utility? Are you measuring your value against the perceived competency of everyone else present? These are not present-day anxieties. They are echoes. They are the defensive posture of the child still standing in the emotional doorway, waiting to see what version of them will be tolerated today. To move beyond this framework requires locating the actual artifact of programming. We must find the precise moment, or rather, the sustained period, when the cost of being oneself became too high. Perhaps it was a moment of genuine excitement, quickly shut down by impatience or dismissal. Too loud. Too much. Go be quiet. The child doesn't process this as temporary parental stress. They process it as a global truth. My natural state is disruptive. My natural state is wrong. And so, the proxy self registers the data point. Enthusiasm must be filtered, minimized, or channeled only into approved, productive outputs. Years later, you wonder why your biggest breakthroughs are met not with joy, but with an immediate, paralyzing need to retreat and check the locks. It is the proxy fearing the spotlight because the spotlight once meant scrutiny, and scrutiny meant potential invalidation. We must understand the difference between healthy self-preservation and programmatic self-betrayal. Self-preservation says, "This current environment is hostile. I should leave." Programmatic self-betrayal says, "I must make myself smaller, less visible, and more compliant, even though the environment is now safe, because I cannot trust my own assessment of safety." This is the cruel trick of the internal defense mechanism. It becomes so good at predicting and mitigating external threats that it begins to view internal authenticity as the biggest threat of all. Because the one thing the proxy self cannot tolerate is radical, unearned acceptance. Unearned acceptance threatens to dismantle the entire defense structure built on earning. If you can be safe and loved just by existing, then everything the proxy sacrificed, the natural joy, the spontaneous expression, the willingness to be truly messy, was unnecessary, and the proxy self, being a loyal, dedicated survivor, cannot admit that the lifetime of tireless work was founded on a conditional premise that may no longer be true. It fears irrelevance. It fears the loss of its function. And so, it manufactures problems, invents requirements, and insists on the complexity of simple things just to maintain the illusion of necessity. How many of your current stresses are entirely self-inflicted, designed by the proxy to keep its sophisticated operations running? The overcommitment, the refusal to delegate, the inability to ask for help without attaching elaborate rationalizations. All signals that the internal guard is still convinced that resting is synonymous with inviting ruin. We are looking for the moment of crystallization, the moment the mask solidified. It usually happened during a sustained period of quiet emotional deprivation, where the child's legitimate emotional needs for comfort or acknowledgement were met not with presence, but with distraction, anxiety, or performance demands. When a child cries out for connection and is given a task instead, they learn to stop asking for connection and only ask for tasks. That conversion is the moment the adult you became was born. The person who now thrives on endless tasks, who feels deep discomfort and unstructured leisure, who measures intimacy by shared productivity rather than shared vulnerability. That is the artifact running the system, and you have mistaken that artifact for destiny. The real work is not about fixing the past, but about interrupting the fidelity of the present programming. It means creating momentary silences where the proxy cannot dominate the internal narrative. It means consciously choosing the inconvenient, genuine impulse over the convenient, programmed response. If the proxy tells you to apologize immediately for something minor, you wait. If the proxy tells you to minimize your success, you state it plainly and accept the silence that follows. If the proxy insists you must earn your seat at the table, you sit down first and then wait for the profound discomfort to pass. This disruption feels like falling. It triggers the deepest survival alarms because you are momentarily letting go of the one thing that guaranteed survival during the early hostile years, the mask. And as you begin to peel back the heavy weave of that coat, as you start to feel the cold air of unmanaged presence on your skin, the terror isn't that the world will reject you now. The terror is the realization of the cost. The terror is realizing how long you allowed the proxy to run the controls. The terrifying moment of becoming who you truly are is the moment you accept that the safety you built was always conditional, and that to finally become truly safe, you must voluntarily destroy the meticulously constructed illusion of safety that has defined your entire adult life.